And now, welcome to tonight's edition of Good Evening Ghana. Coming up tonight, Donald Trump, elected 47th President of the United States of America. How did the pollsters and the media get it so manifestly wrong? Has Donald Trump won the biggest landslide in American politics since the Second World War? We look at the figures, the maps, and all the analysis to make sense of what has happened in America. Also featuring in this discussion, Professor Eche Sikanku, the expert on political communication. He's an author and he's a lecturer. And then there is Dodu, the blind historian, who will give us the comparative analysis between what happened in America and what is likely to happen in Ghana on December 7th. Also in this edition, the Attorney General weighed in on Parliament's controversy in a rare interview on the sidelines of a government conference by government lawyers. Stay tuned. Join us for text messages. It will be brought to you by the social media editors. This is Good Evening Ghana. Welcome aboard.
We must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny, and anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States.
Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory, and I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something that I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. I also hope we can lay to rest the question about the integrity of the American electoral system. It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent.
And now, welcome to tonight's edition of Good Evening Ghana. Coming up tonight, Donald Trump, elected 47th President of the United States of America. How did the pollsters and the media get it so manifestly wrong? Has Donald Trump won the biggest landslide in American politics since the Second World War? We look at the figures, the maps, and all the analysis to make sense of what has happened in America. Also featuring in this discussion, Professor Eche Sikanku, the expert on political communication. He's an author and he's a lecturer. And then there is Dodu, the blind historian, who will give us the comparative analysis between what happened in America and what is likely to happen in Ghana on December 7th. Also in this edition, the Attorney General weighed in on Parliament's controversy in a rare interview on the sidelines of a government conference by government lawyers. Stay tuned. Join us for text messages. It will be brought to you by the social media editors. This is Good Evening Ghana. Welcome aboard. Oh yes, our book will be ready soon. Good evening, welcome to the show, and congratulations to POTUS 47. Donald J. Trump won a massive victory in America yesterday. What happened? How did everybody get it wrong? What happened? Tonight we're going to go through the map. Let me show you some of the things we'll be doing in our major second story. Yes, so this is the map. We'll be looking at it. We'll be telling you why there's a difference of 4,656,000. Donald Trump actually went on to win the popular vote, and we'll be explaining the difference between popular vote and electoral college votes. If we switch the map this way, this one I'm going to show you. This is the American map as well. So you have, this is the state map that we're going to share with you on how people voted where. And here we have the county map. And it shows everything red was for Donald Trump, everything blue was for Kamala Harris. We'll explain to you why the red is this way and why there's deep red and dotted blues, and why along a certain coast over here, whilst it's red, all the people here were expected to vote for Kamala Harris because of their social status, but it turned out that they all massively voted for Donald Trump. How come the media didn't know that this was going to happen? And then we're going to take you through the analysis, the gender, what happened with gender, what happened with race, how did the whites vote, black votes, Hispanic, Latino, Asian. We're going to tell you all that. Age, the people between the ages of 18 and 29, how did they vote? 30, 44, how did they vote? 44, 64, how did they vote? And over 65, how did they vote? And then educated people, college graduate, non-college graduate. We're going to show you everything tonight. Harris lost the support among important voters, and we're also comparing Kamala Harris, vice president tonight, to President Joe Biden's performance in 2020, and we're analyzing all of these things. As you analyze, you begin to wonder, how did the media get it wrong? But we'll get into all that later on tonight. Also, we're taking you historically. We're starting from the 1980 elections in America that was massively won by Ronald Reagan, beating Jimmy Carter, who was looking for a second term. 1984, Ronald Reagan beat Walter Mondale of the Democratic Party. Michael Dukakis, we all used to eulogize him in the 80s when we heard his name on GBC radio, that he wanted to be American president. His name, Dukakis, was quite interesting to all of us. But George W. Bush defeated him massively with 426 electoral votes. I'm sure the night was very short. We go to 1992, where the wonder boy Bill Clinton changed a bit of American political map. We move on to 1996. Bill Clinton secures a massive second term. Then comes the year 2000, the biggest American election ever. George W. Bush, the only president since the Second World War to secure exactly the minimum that he needed from the electoral college votes to win, 271. And how did he do it? He was heavily aided by Florida, where his brother was governor at the time. Of course, the Supreme Court made a declaration, the Supreme Court of America, the federal Supreme Court, made a declaration that was in favor of George W. Bush. 2004, George Bush, on the back of the Iraq War, secures a big victory, 3 million difference in the popular vote, and he gets 286 electoral college votes. Then comes election 2008, Barack Obama, the first African-American to be elected, the first black American to be elected president of the United States, with a difference of almost 10 million votes. And then 2012, Barack Obama re-elected against Mitt Romney. Then comes Donald Trump, Donald Trump, that election that had two major new people, new quote-unquote non-political Donald Trump business, and then Hillary Clinton, the first American female attempt at becoming president. Hillary Clinton did creditably well. She was widely expected to win by the polls, something similar to what we're experiencing now. She was defeated by Donald J. Trump, 304 electoral votes. However, the important story from 2016's elections is that Hillary Clinton, at that time she was Secretary of State for the United States of America, she secured the popular vote. She won the popular vote by 2.8 million. The number of people who voted for her and the number of people who voted for Donald Trump, she had 2 million people more voting for her than Donald Trump, but she lost the electoral college votes, and therefore she was not American president. Then in 2020, the big COVID election, Donald J. Trump comes up with 232 electoral votes. Joe Biden, former vice president to Barack Obama, now on the ticket, comes up with 306 electoral votes, wins the election with a difference of 7 million votes. Now, the big one is what we are discussing tonight. So stay tuned for that one. Don't go anywhere. We have a big show tonight. We're going to start with something else. Now, though, producer, play our welcome intro again. When you come back, we go to the story on Godfrey Dame, the Speaker of Parliament, SKB Asante, Parliament itself, and the government lawyers in Accra. What has been happening tonight? That's our first story. Then we come to the American story. Our guests are ready. Our social media editors are ready. We believe that you are also ready. This is Good Evening Ghana is live. Here's our welcome intro again.
And now, welcome to tonight's edition of Good Evening Ghana. Coming up tonight, Donald Trump, elected 47th President of the United States of America. How did the pollsters and the media get it so manifestly wrong? Has Donald Trump won the biggest landslide in American politics since the Second World War? We look at the figures, the maps, and all the analysis to make sense of what has happened in America. Also featuring in this discussion, Professor Eche Sikanku, the expert on political communication. He's an author and he's a lecturer. And then there is Dodu, the blind historian, who will give us the comparative analysis between what happened in America and what is likely to happen in Ghana on December 7th. Also in this edition, the Attorney General weighed in on Parliament's controversy in a rare interview on the sidelines of a government conference by government lawyers. Stay tuned. Join us for text messages. It will be brought to you by the social media editors. This is Good Evening Ghana. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard indeed. Godfrey Yeboah-Dame is the learned Attorney General. Today, he closed this all-important conference, very noble conference. Everyone is commending the Attorney General for it. What did he do? He brought together all the government lawyers in one room for 3 days to discuss how they should negotiate contracts for government. I think it's the most noble thing that has happened to the Ministry of Justice in a very, very long time. Interviewing Dr. SKB Asante later on, which I'll be showing to you tonight, Dr. Asante commended the Attorney General, and Dr. Asante said that he had been thinking about these things since the 1970s when he was Deputy Attorney General. Later on, when Michael Kwe was Speaker, he spoke to Michael Kwe. He did some training for Parliament, but this was the single most important initiative to get government to begin to work together on the legal side and also save government from the major judgment debt cases. In the sidelines of the interview, we spoke to Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, who gave us a glimmer of hope on how some of these diligent working has saved government. Let's have a look at it.
Good governance underpins everything. Good governance permits every facet of business life. I am dealing with an arbitration right now. The hearing of which was conducted in April in London, involving GCNet, a company called GCNet, which was in charge of the management of the port revenue system. Can you believe that that contract was renewed successively by the NDC administration between 2012 and up to 2023 without any PPA approval? Without any PPA approval, without any approval from the Public Procurement Authority, or without recourse to any of the procedures known to the Public Procurement System of Ghana. So the agreement itself was first brokered in 2000, became effective in 2002. By that time, there was no PPA requirement. Fair deal. It was for a term of 10 years, and it lapsed on
2012.
In 2012. After that, by dint of a letter written by the Minister for Trade at that time, the agreement was extended for 1 year.
1 year?
Yes, 2013. After the 2013, by dint of another agreement made without any recourse to PPA procedures or any of the means of procurement, the life of the agreement was extended for a further 5 years. And from 2013 to 5 years onwards, when it is supposed to lapse to 2018.
18.
Before the agreement will lapse in 2018, and before the John Mahama administration will leave office in October 2016, John Mahama's Minister for Trade and Industry at that time extended the life of the agreement
Before it would
lapse for a further 5 years, extending it further up to 2023. And of course, clearly this was illegal, unknown to the laws of Ghana. And so the NPP administration, which took office, had to terminate the agreement because all manner of complaints were raised about the execution of the agreement and all that. And the company, which has suffered from such illegal or unlawful processes, then to be the government of Ghana for arbitration.
Even the company has benefited from all of this.
Which has benefited from the sole management of Ghana's port.
Then Ghana in termination of contract.
For termination of contract for over 4 billion Ghana cedis.
billion Ghana.
Billion Ghana cedis. That's the equivalent of about $260 million.
Wow.
Equivalent of about $260 million.
Then what happened?
And that's cool. So we had a hearing and we are expecting the award anytime soon. I'm confident that on account of the sound defense that we mounted there, and it's not a matter that, I mean, it's something I'm saying so just to...
Did they change their claim before the end of the process, or they still stand on 4 billion?
Yes, 4 billion is the minimum because interest and all that is very short.
Okay.
Even the interest also is a part of disputation. So they are seeking compound interest per the London exchange rate and compound interest. My contention is that even domestically, we have abolished compound interest when it comes to contracts involving the government.
Yeah.
In my tenure as Attenjua, I spearheaded the passage of the Contract Amendment Act, by which every public officer is required to state only simple interest as the rate of interest for any contract. And that if there is an indication or a statement that the rate of interest is compound interest is illegal, it shall not be honest.
So that's the point you're making.
That's the point I'm making.
This was May 14 in Ghana. There'll be no conversation of compound interest. But at the arbitration, they include it.
Compound interest.
Knowing that it's not allowed in Ghana, but this is international.
That's everything. But I'm confident that my agreement will be upheld and all that. And we are expecting the award anytime soon. I'm sure the award will come in. So the point I'm making is that indeed, if careful attention is not paid to contracting and contract management, as well as management of arbitration or dispute resolution, the country's economy can be brought to its knees one day.
So it's very, very important.
Wake up, we'll have an award of $7 million, $9 million here and there. You remember what happened to us recently before I was appointed as Attenjua, when the International Arbitration Tribunal awarded $160 or so million
for the petroleum people.
For the petroleum, yes, the traffic bureau. The government of Ghana has not been able to satisfy that award. And every now and then they go to South Africa, they go to New York, they go to London, trying to attach our assets in bits and pieces. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what would have happened if ENI's claim, which was $7 billion, and when it was contested by us, it was reduced to $950 million, had succeeded? But the $950 million was dismissed in its entirety. What would have happened to the Ghanaian economy if that $950 million...
Almost $1 billion.
What would have happened?
This crisis.
Precisely. What would have happened if Cassius Mining Limited's $300 million had succeeded? So I think that it's very necessary that all lawyers working in the public sector come together and go through this. I mean, have a thorough study of all the processes regarding public procurement. But the government of Ghana, when it enters into a contract, is not at liberty to operate as freely as a private individual.
Yeah.
You can just walk into a furniture shop, pick up furniture and go to your house. You can engage a contractor on the phone and say, tomorrow morning, go and start building my house. The government officer or a public officer is not at liberty to do same at all. It happens, I mean, it relates to every aspect of procurement in Ghana, whether it's procurement of goods, works, or services.
Also, later tonight, we'll be showing you the Dr. S.K.B. Asante speaking at the conference. I also know that if you're just joining us, you know the big American story is coming. Professor Sikanku has arrived in the studio. We're going to have a big conversation about that. Now, Parliament sort of reconvened today after 15 MPs had triggered, I believe, Article 115, something like that. Can't remember. 15 MPs had triggered the article and the standing orders that requires 41 MPs of the 275 to ask the Speaker to convene the House. The Speaker obliged the members of Parliament who had triggered the standing orders for a compulsory reconvening of the House. That occurred today. Somehow, the House didn't sit, and the Speaker has adjourned sine die again. Why did that happen? That happened because, according to the members of the New Patriotic Party in Parliament, upon the arrival in Parliament, they noticed that the NDC had done what they did the last time, that the majority, the MPP decided not to respond, which is to sit in the place where they are not supposed to sit, according to the majority. So they didn't participate. The Speaker has adjourned it again. On the sidelines of the conference this morning, I asked the Attorney General. He was in court, in the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court declined the Speaker's application to rescind their own decision for stay of the Speaker's ruling. It was argued technically all over the place by the members of the Ghana Bar Association and senior members too, that the Supreme Court's wording of or the application, the filing of the application, and the wording that there has to be a stay of execution, the words stay of execution was not properly used, because the stay of execution is used about, against, and within the context of a decision of a court. A decision of a high court, a decision of a court of appeal, a decision of a circuit court. Those are the things that you go to Supreme Court and you use the word stay of execution. The Supreme Court felt that doesn't matter. The point they were making is that whatever declarations that Mr. Bagbin made, effect should not be given to it. Legal effect should not be given to the declarations that Mr. Bagbin made. You can call it a declaration, you can call it a ruling, you can call it whatever. Mr. Bagbin's idea was that in view of what had happened at the Electoral Commission, that 4 members of Parliament had filed their nomination to participate in the future Parliament in another way different from how they came into this Parliament. Mr. Bagbin's interpretation of that was that they were doing so in violation of the Constitution, and therefore they should vacate their seats. It's a clear view of the Majority Leader and his lawyers that the Speaker was wrong. The Supreme Court said they will look at the matter, but in the meantime, the Speaker must allow the 4 to sit until the Supreme Court has completed looking into the matter. The Speaker sued the Supreme Court, sued the Supreme Court, and was inviting the court to change their decision. In the hearing, the court decided not to change their decision. The Attorney General was in court that day. I asked him on the sidelines of the conference today, what does he make of the parliamentary situation? Here is that conversation, just 2 minutes long. Have a look.
Basic principle must be recognized. And it was stated not today or by being a Supreme Court last week. Supreme Court last week, when I argued that I was only restating a position that had been declared by the Supreme Court in 2004 and Attorney General, where it's stated that in the constitutional matter, there's nothing like a personal interest. Indeed, so the community of interest.
Can you convince people that
what I'm saying is that the issue that arises in this constitutional matter is the interpretation of a specific provision of the Constitution. Your meaning, your understanding of the provision, which is at variance with that held by another person. And the court, as the arbiter in such matters, will make a determination. So that is why the Constitution makes the Attorney General a defender of all of such actions. Because the Attorney General represents the public trust, the public interest. And in doing so, it is not as if the Attorney General's interest is one big question. When I make the defendant in all the matters, I have not committed anything at all. When I go and defend the government of Ghana on arbitration and elsewhere, it's not I who have done anything at all. It's actually public officers and their actions and all, for which the Attorney General is made liable. So I think the country must recognize that. So for me, and indeed, to find Attorney General, it's also important, but it involved the same issue of a decision made by the Speaker of Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament, yes, the Speaker of Parliament or the Parliament of Ghana had determined that a Chief Justice ought to be subjected to processes of prior approval by Parliament. And the Supreme Court held that, yes, it's a proper action to start with. Number 2, the Speaker of Parliament should not be a proper party to the action. The Speaker of Parliament was actually struck out from the action. And I remember the President in a private conversation with me telling me that he was very cross with the decision. The matter, counsel, lead counsel, the matter. He said he was even dissatisfied with the Supreme Court striking out the Speaker, because of course he was the counsel for plaintiff and he had joined the Speaker to the action. But the Supreme Court heard that, yes, even though we are going to rule for you, President Akufo-Addo and your clients, before, we are not going to hold that the Speaker is a proper party to the action. Because the constitutional action, the Speaker has no interest. It is the point you're making. Yes.
That the Speaker has made his decision.
It is
beyond that, he has no personal interest to enforce that decision.
Yes.
It is his understanding of the Constitution. Yes. So if the Supreme Court gives another understanding, it's not a quarrel.
And it is final.
Yeah.
Binding on him.
And binding on him.
So
and he hasn't lost.
Yes.
He actually see it as a defeat of the Speaker.
Definitely not. And that is why
the Speaker shouldn't see it as such a...
Definitely not. That's why I said that we must have the humility to accept this Supreme Court decision. And indeed, with all respect, I found it a little bit unusual for a Speaker of Parliament to give people the press conference
which he did yesterday
and attack the Supreme Court in the manner in which he did. I would not make any comment on it at all, but of course it's unusual. I do not think there's any precedent for that in this country.
No, I can't see a precedent for that. And this morning, Parliament seems to be in confusion again. You were in court when the Speaker challenged the Supreme Court's so-called stay of his order, and you made arguments. What was your understanding, your takeaway from the decision that was made by the court in relation to Parliament?
I thought it was just going to be a little conversation.
No, we need this. The one that Attorney General is here.
I just finished the conference, and I thought they were just going to ask me about.
We have to talk about this because I'm coming for Parliament. What's your
understanding? That's fine. A matter of public interest, so I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
I think clearly, one thing is that certain basic principles we have to observe. The first principle is that we are a country governed by the Constitution. And in the Constitution itself, institutions are created. There is the grant of independence, autonomy to the functioning of certain institutions. And I fully respect that and endorse that. But the Constitution states that if any person or group of persons is sovereign, that is the people of Ghana. So sovereignty resides in the people of Ghana, Article 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution. Or Article 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Then it proceeds to say that supremacy of laws is in the Constitution. So the Constitution is supreme. So there's no such concept as sovereignty of Parliament, sovereignty of judiciary, sovereignty of the executive, none whatsoever. There's also no such concept as supremacy of executive, supremacy of the legislature, or of the judiciary. So even the person who takes precedence over all of us, that is the president, and that's not me saying so. The Constitution again in Article 58 has stated emphatically that the president takes precedence over all persons in Ghana. Even that person is subject to the Constitution. I think that when we agree on all these fundamental principles, there will be peace in the country.
Still on, that was the Attorney General. Tomorrow we'll put it on Facebook page. You have enough time to look at it. Send your text messages on this one. Good evening, Ghana official. The American conversation is coming on soon after 10 o'clock, isn't it? It's 8 minutes more to 10. Don't go anywhere. We still ask the Attorney General one question. You know, we always do that as Good Evening Ghana. We always try to get to the bottom of the matter. So we ask him the question, okay, right now, Supreme Court has given a decision. If the Speaker does not comply, or for some reason it is found that Parliament does not comply, what happened this morning, well, is somebody may say Parliament didn't comply, another person may say something, we don't know. But we asked the Attorney General that if the Speaker or Parliament doesn't comply on what looks like a very clear Supreme Court order, what are the consequences? This is what he said.
How authoritative is a decision from the Supreme Court under the Constitution?
It is fully binding on all, and indeed it carries the penalty of a removal from office in the case of a president. If the person is not the president, it carries the penalty of 10 years. Press one to the institutional criminal proceedings.
10 years of what?
In prison.
Contempt.
So a failure to obey an order, direction, or if you like, the decision of the Supreme Court amounts to what we call a high crime. It is not contempt of court, it's a high crime. And whoever is suspected of being guilty of high crime will have to be prosecuted in accordance with procedures laid down by the Constitution, which of course the Attorney General prosecuted and all that. It will suffer the punishment of 10 years in prison.
Wow.
Nothing at all. And in the case of the president, it is stated that that person shall be.
So in Parliament, some people are sitting on the left, some people are not, don't want to go and sit on the left. Two groups want to sit on the left of the Speaker because that's where the majority sits. Did the Supreme Court legislate that?
I think for me, the issue is quite simple. The Supreme Court's orders substantively were two, that Speaker Bagbe's declaration or ruling, as we may term it, or is a statement or whatever, is state. It must not be carried out. Two, the 4 MPs in question must be allowed to function as MPs. Simple as that. The Supreme Court, of course, will not make orders as to where you sit and where you should not sit, because that is really within the president of Parliament.
What should the people who think of themselves as majority do when they show up in Parliament and their seats have been taken?
Well, so for me, the Supreme Court will not extend. That is sometimes also quite clear. Might be established. The Supreme Court will not extend its tentacles into determining where an MP should sit. But that's matter for the internal arrangement of procedures of Parliament. The Supreme Court can only pronounce on the status of member of Parliament, whether indeed the person still remains an MP or on account of the relevant constitutional provisions, facts have arisen which will render his seat vacant. So if indeed the Supreme Court has held that such a person should function as an MP, I think the orders of the court will be satisfied if the 4 MPs are allowed to function as MPs. For me, it doesn't matter where they will sit. Indeed, if I were the majority leader, my concern will be a satisfaction of the Supreme Court on this, which is that the 4 MPs should be allowed to function as MPs. Whether they sit on left or right, for me, is immaterial. The most important thing is that
carry out their function and
participate
in parliament,
participate in proceedings and what have you. And if they do so, and if indeed there has to be a vote, and they vote to the majority, so be it. I mean, simple as that. That's why that's under the Supreme Court really.
That was the Attorney General speaking to us earlier today. Also, now Dr. SKB Asante was there. He graced the occasion, a very distinguished 91-year-old Nana Dr. SKB Asante, 91-year-old Nana Dr. SKB Asante. Now, he spoke to us in 2 contexts. In the second context, he was concerned that here on Good Evening Ghana, we said something about him that's unpalatable. I profoundly apologized, and it turned out that we didn't quite say so. So he was alleging something else, I'll tell you, and we gave him the opportunity to respond, so he responded. But first, he was full of praise for the event. Here it is.
Time, and we're grateful that you are here. This is the first time that the Attorney General is bringing together government sector lawyers, and it's given a bit of hope to businesses and people observing. You have been here. What is your observation about a conference like this?
I think it's an excellent initiative on the part of the Attorney General to expose all government lawyers to the idea of negotiating and handling these international transactions with foreign entities, because it's a matter which has been proved in all developing countries that handle them inefficiently causes all sorts of detriment to the government and to the society as a general. For some time, I have been urging that special efforts should be made to train government officials, not only lawyers, but those who are involved in international negotiations, because it's a very complex area. President Kufuor agrees with me that it is one of the weakest aspects of the governmental system in our part of the world, in Africa. And therefore, attempts should be made to correct this and to develop skills and knowledge in this area. And the Attorney General is to be highly commended for taking this initiative. It's something which I've urged previous governments to do. Sometimes they respond, but this is very encouraging. I recall that in the year 2019, the former Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Michael Quay, invited Mighty to do a workshop in Korea for 3 days on how to review and approve international business transactions pursuant to their parliamentary obligations under the Constitution. So, but the important thing is for the executive to do that at the negotiating stage. So I'm very pleased that the Attorney General has taken this initiative.
We had to also engage Nana Dr. SKB Asante. Again, he's 91 years old. God bless him. And may we all borrow from his grace of aging nicely, and great. He's contributed significantly his quota to his nation. And may all men aspire to be like Nana Dr. SKB Asante, 91 years old, and he's still contributing his quota, his experience, his expertise to the development of law in Ghana. The Attorney General and all his team were very gracious that Nana Dr. SKB Asante was at the event. All right. He told us that somebody told him that here on Good Evening Ghana, we had been analyzing something about the National Constitution, and we had wrongly alleged or said that he, Nana Dr. SKB Asante, was co-opted by the PNDC government to be among the committee of experts, or to chair actually the committee of experts. And we said that in chairing the committee of experts for the 1992 constitution, he had been recruited to protect the military junta, hence the transitional provisions in the 1992 constitution. He was very upset about this, and rightly so, because he didn't do that. And so we told him that what we did here on the program was that we were reviewing books. We're quoting from Kwame Nkrumah, quoting from Obed Asamoah. And I believe Obed Asamoah, it says, who had written that people had speculated on Dr. SKB Asante's co-opting to be the chairman of experts, committee of experts to write out the 1992 constitution. It was delivered by Justice D.F. Annan. D.F. Annan used his relationship from the Attorney General's Department in the 1960s to co-opt Dr. SKB Asante to do this work. In fact, the proposals of Nana Dr. SKB Asante was not accepted by the PNDC and the Consultative Assembly. Eventually, the Consultative Assembly designed its own constitution, which is now what we now have, 1992 constitution. They borrowed some aspects of the advice from KB Asante, but the germane issues, the structure of the constitution that KB Asante proposed was sidestepped. Asante was proposing an executive president and an executive prime minister appointed by the executive, the non-executive president. So we explained to him that we know what it is. It is inconceivable and unreasonable for anybody to say that it was he, Dr. KB Asante, who was in to protect the junta, because it was the junta that rejected his proposal. So we apologized to him. But when we set out to interview him, we thought it was reasonable for him to make this statement. So we begged him that he should still say it on television. So for people to hear that, we did not do that. We have a lot of respect for him, and we sincerely apologize. This is Nana Dr. SKB Asante.
You know, I told you that the comment you made.
Yes.
About my being recruited to protect the military junta, which I heard
of 92,
is totally untrue. I was recruited as chairman of the committee of experts to formulate proposals for the Constitution of Ghana. This we did, and we did through producing a report of the Committee of Experts on the Constitution, which had nothing to do with the protection or immunity of the consultative of the PNDC. The transitional provisions, which contained the immunity provisions of the PNDC, they were actually negotiated, not even by the Consultative Assembly, certainly not by the Committee of Experts, but the Committee of Experts, our work was completed when we handed the report to the Consultative Assembly. But the Consultative Assembly itself did not even negotiate the transitional provisions. That was done by a legal committee of the PNDC headed by Justice Annan and some chairman of the Consultative Assembly, not the whole thing. So any notion that I was recruited to protect the military through the transitional provisions which provided for the immunity of the PNDC is totally wrong. I want to accept that. And you put it, at least it appeared to say so in a program which I saw, which gave me a lot of offense.
We are sorry about that.
Okay.
We did not intend that. But yes, your clarification is very well accepted. And it is also true. We know that it is true. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Nana Dr. SKB Asante. What are people saying on the text messages? Remember, coming up, our big story, United States of America, landslide victory for Donald J. Trump. All the media got it wrong. The dead heat, the close race in Pennsylvania, close race across the country. Kamala Harris leading on 3 percentage points, 4 percentage points in the global poll, which is the poll polling the American popular vote, all showed up to be wrong in reality. The real polls is the ballot box. So tell all Ghanaians, Musa Dankwa, how are you? Good evening. How are you doing? Musa Dankwa, Musa Dankwa. People were sending me your post about the American election. I won't say anything about it, Musa Dankwa. Don't worry. We're all here. The post of 7th December is coming. We're all here. Don't worry. Don't worry. 30 days more. 30 days to go. Okay. What are people saying about the first part of the program? It's 5 minutes past the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. Who shall I start with, Antoinette? Fatih, welcome back. What are they saying?
Thank you. This also says the Attorney General is so bright. Lily Will says Mahama leased Ghana ports and they have now turned around to rant about port charges. Well done, Godfred, for fighting this on behalf of Ghana. The media won't talk about this. Good news. Lily comes again to say the NPP needs to do a press conference on the port sales. Richard Ahiamba. Lily says again, so will Backbin call back Parliament to approve their ex gratia? Ghanaians should wake up because the NDC don't care. General A.L. Coman says, does the Speaker want Ghanaians to take a skeptical and ironic stance towards our democratic beliefs or die for beliefs that cannot withstand philosophical scrutiny? The action of the Speaker is staging constitutional coup. He must respect the rule of law. Best Point says, indeed, the Speaker is taking the thing personal and making it look like he's the one in challenge. Dashtinkun says, I agree with the AG. Our distinguished honorable majority MPs should ignore the childish behavior of the NDCs and just sit in their numbers. And let's see who will have upper hands to control government business. And lastly, coming from Master Planner Junior all the way from Kentampo, he says, the Speaker of Parliament is not performing his duties well. Why can't he instruct the NDC minority members to sit at the appropriate place? The Supreme Court has given its order and we must all comply to it. It's so embarrassing to see the honorable members behaving this way. What are your first answer?
Okay, from Ivan Zakama, he says, fantastic Attorney General. Yao Kantata says, 30 days for Dr. Bawumia to upgrade from Vice President's position to President position. Alhaji Yusuf says, Paul, President Biden must apologize to his party, the Democratic Party, for being greedy initially on going for a second term despite being fragile. He never applied wisdom and love for his party by holding on until the window of primaries was closed, only to slot in Camilla, who was not ready. From Freeman, he says, Dr. Bawumia will be the next president of Ghana, no matter what. It is possible. From Ifwa Nyanosh, he says, Trump only wins against women and not men. From Tei Okanse, he says, the undocumented guys in America are unhappy about Trump's win, but it is what it is and God is in control. Lastly, from Ifwanyano, she says she can see that Paul is very happy about Trump's win. Okay, over to you, Antoinette.
People are still having in their views on the utterances of the Attorney General concerning the issue in Parliament. Samuel Ofosuba says that the Honorable Speaker has allowed political partisanship to blindfold his 2 decades experiences in the plenary. He touted himself the number 3. Yet not performing as it requires of him. This man will be out of the parliamentary speakership as a lower performer in the history of Ghana. Now, someone said that the Attorney General appears to be a party boy, and then we have Justin Benzema clapping back, and he says, the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice remains one of the best Ghana has ever had. He has saved his country billions of cedis through his successful challenge of all international arbitrations. So whether he is a party boy or a foot soldier, it is immaterial to some of us. Honorable Godfred Dami is one of the best so far. Now, Ahmed Suleiman seems to agree with Attorney General. He says that Attorney General was spot on. Our NPP parliamentarians should eschew battling the NDC and backbone over the sitting arrangement and champion the approval of government's proposals for the betterment of the nation. Enoch Kwame Yeboah actually says that the Attorney General is a fantastic guy. He is very honest. The NPP MPs should not be concerned about certain positions. They should rather focus on government businesses. Mahama in Burma says if the Supreme Court cannot extend hand to Parliament sitting arrangement and the head is taking sides, then there is no Parliament for now and parliamentarians should not be paid for deceiving constituents. Safiano Adam, all the way from Pusiga, he says the speaker is blindfolded by unmitigated self-conceit, which makes him think separation of powers vis-a-vis the three arms of government gives him the right to act on impulse instead of what the law says. Sangmore Prince says, why is the NPP actually worrying itself with this majority issue at all? Are they sure that those MPs would vote in their favor in Parliament? Kofi Drews, I think that democracy has been fully executed in these few years of President Akufo-Addo and the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame's rule. A lot of cases democratically heard, and which has really opened my mind on the rules of law. I think it's very good a precedent. We are learning Apostle Paul. And lastly, Samuel Ofosuba has this to say about the Attorney General. He says, the Honorable Godfred Dame is a statesman attorney who has performed extremely well in the history of our beloved country, Ghana. He has saved the state from many judgment debts, which would have cost the nation a lot of huge amounts of money. I will appeal to the next NPP government to appoint him the Supreme Court bench. Honorable Attorney General, we appreciate your advice, your service, and your unceasing lifestyles in aiding the legal ombudsman. Your name will be printed on the annals of Ghana with bronze. Now back to you, Paul.
Okay. It's going to be a nice program when we come back from the break, because we're going to talk about America. Somebody sent a text and I'm delighted Donald Trump won. Well, maybe you can say that. I'm a right-wing reporter. Am I a Trump supporter? I'm a Trump admirer in 2016 and 2020. My concern, I'll state it when Professor Sikaku takes his seat. It's 10 minutes past 10 after the break. Full throttle American election. What happened? What didn't happen? Here in Ghana, it's 30 days more to go. I'll be right back.
Between 2014 and 2016, finding a job was a monumental struggle for we the youth. Frustration grew so intense that over 10,000 graduates banded together to form the Unemployed Graduate Association of Ghana. When we sought help, the response from then President Mahama was disheartening. He said he wasn't a magician, implying he couldn't create job out of thin air.
There's no magic to put money into people's pockets. If our education sector is churning out graduates and people who do not have the skills that business and industry is demanding, then they cannot find jobs.
His Minister of Youth and Sports echoed this sentiment.
Just look for a cutlass or a sickle, cut the grasses, put in a sack, put it by the wayside for people who breed animals. Every single day, if you do that, somebody will come and buy. Go into the bush. Every stone you find, just lift them, put in the bucket, come and pour it there. Every day, do that for 1 month. You will have 2 trips or 3 trips of stone. You don't need any skill to do that.
And these are the creation of the governments.
Yes.
This is a past we must remember. Never again.
So NBC bar, they may be in Juman kitten. Say Akuko now person share poultry farm, Ketu AB, near Mao Akuko Bono.
Over the past 8 years, the MPP has created over 2.3 million jobs and has promised to create over 4 million new jobs. Bawumia means jobs. Bawumia for jobs.
Esoro, vote number 1 on the ballot.
Fire pomudi ni agobi Ghana fu ni age efi say ya your local spices na ya frafra dia ya sankofa natural spice
me de go me jollof mu ni mi sti wa hodoma e ma ne dance
Stanley, the barbecue the go on
sankofa natural spices and one you use 100% natural
Adofo, mamunye huge mistake. Sankofa natural spices. Didi.
FDA ejedi nkratu yatu.
Who are you? Who are you? Charlie, I'll be you from the future. Who doesn't sleep on that slice of bread you call mattress anymore? Don some slippers, then follow me.
It is part of the mattress we did the front there.
Yeah?
Happiness mattress where the dead for time.
Wait, what are you doing? Wow! No damage at all. Not only durable, but also super comfortable. Come on, try it.
Nothing day like Ash Foam. Enjoy full body support and unparalleled comfort for a restful sleep.
Don't forget your keys.
Get the premium sleep experience with mattresses from Ash Foam. Visit any of our showrooms nationwide or at ashfoam.com.
Dr. Bawumia once said,
teachers are suffering. Teacher trainees are suffering. Nurses are suffering. And nursing trainees are suffering. Patients are suffering. Students are suffering. Traders are suffering. Pensioners are suffering. Drivers are suffering. Contractors are suffering. Civil servants are suffering. And farmers are suffering. Fishermen are suffering and industries are suffering. Artisans are suffering and Kayaye are suffering. The disabled are suffering and men are suffering. Women are suffering and children and Ghanaians as a whole are suffering.
vote John Dramani Mahama for president. Trustworthy, honest, and reliable. Vote for change. Choose the umbrella. Vote John Dramani Mahama and the NDC.
One choice, multiple styles. All big, all unique.
Hey, what's up?
How far with your intention?
To be honest, I'm so nervous about starting this new role on Monday.
Oh, please. I know you'll be great at it. You should be worried about what benefits they have. Example, do they have health insurance?
I doubt they will have that for internet. But no shaking. I have NHIS already.
Actually, I'm on a line.
Ina, look at you. What are you going to do in the office when you can just download their app to register for an NHIS membership?
Yes, my people. You heard right. You can now download and register your membership on my NHIS app. No long queues or tedious paperwork. All you need is your Ghana card to register for yourself and for others. Once you register, you get a new digital NHIS card on your phone. My NHIS app gives you access to credentialed health facilities and services across the country. NHIS covers over 95% of disease conditions in Ghana. Access to healthcare just got easier.
Now let me sign up quickly. Miss Seth, I'm starting work next month.
This election is about the character and competency of the two leading candidates. Let's hear what the Speaker of Parliament, Alan Bagbin, a leading NDC member, has to say about John Mahama.
You know, John Dramani Mahama, in terms of a human being, when you look at him, he can talk very, very well. Okay, but we're talking about leadership. And you know, the basic fundamentals of leadership involves character, competence, and care. I can say with all certainty that the way he performed, he seemed not to have known Ghanaians. He has not been able to diagnose where we got to and where we want to go to.
I believe strongly that his style of leadership, particularly the problems he have with taking decisions, and some of the decisions, I should say, many of those decisions were so catastrophic, all contributed to our losing the election. I also think that he hasn't got that mettle, that courage, to push through when things are difficult. It's like we're losing leadership as a party. The party is poorer, its members are worse off. It's all because of poor leadership.
Let's hear what the former President Kufuor has to say about Dr. Bawumia.
This young man here seems to have these instruments under his belt. Digitalization, geopolitics. He's hallmarked by humility and the temperance requisite for the job of leading a nation in search of a way forward. Ghana has come to a crossroads. It's not the normal, regular politics we want. We want a leadership with a vision, even in the complex world I've talked about. Please, let's all accept him to continue.
True leadership is defined by character, competency, vision, innovation, and a can-do spirit. Vote number 1 on the ballot.
The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere.
8K. Hey, you can get 8K. Get back packing from your Pokemon. Wallahi. Hey, wait.
You can put it on this time. This is my man.
Good luck. Hey, go bill radio. We are star 712. It's what you follow. I'm on dialing the magic numbers. Star 712. Now welcome to the luckiest. And now with me at home ticket. You can buy for yourself or your loved one.
Mommy, tell mommy who's here.
You're buying for me, right?
Or who else?
Oh.
Let me choose buy tickets for others.
Love you, boo boo.
No, maybe straight to option 4. Now, you need to buy tickets worth 50 Ghana to qualify. Yes, you can buy random or preferred tickets. I'm choosing random tickets. Listen, if you buy the random ticket, the system chooses a random number for you. But if you buy the preferred, you get to input your own preferred 5 digits. 5.
Baby, give me your 5 numbers.
And how much are we buying?
Babe, look at the body and buy you.
With your body,
Hey,
never. Tread cautiously. Now follow the prompts and confirm. Now the luckiest.
The luckiest is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform, not for persons below 18 years. TNCs applied.
Apomode wonsem yemfen diagro. Enunti nese wonom edepapa nko a. Exodus moringa capsules, any Exodus dandelion capsules. Efi Exodus elusuyenum, na beboa wa apomode. Emu bia wo benya no betimi aboa wo. Nanso, se wo yeto no a, wo betimi anom abom, na beboa papa. Se wonom Exodus moringa capsules, ni Exodus dandelion capsules. Ebwa mamoja di efusani yu. Na afei, ebusti wo immune system no, na akweti ayarewa ahodo. Minimi ye se, nipa dodo na nim dia moringa etumi ye. Na dandelion so ye nim. Enu nti, menkasa bebre. Enye mma apemfo. Ana abatan a oma enifo. Ana abofra a onya emfidumi. Exodus more than city doors.
In a fast-growing urban environment like Accra, safety is as important as the air that we breathe. Hear the real stories from those who now feel safe like never before with Response One.
One night, I heard the glass shattering. Armed robbers had broken in. Before I could react, the alarm blared and the lights flashed, and Response One was already on their way. Within minutes, the security was at my door and the armed robbers had fled. I never want to be that scared again. And now I know with Response One, I never will.
Don't wait for tragedy to strike. Protect your home with Response One's monitored alarm system and our theft protection guarantee. Immediate response, real protection. Response One, stay connected, stay protected.
One choice, multiple styles. All big, all unique.
Ago Ghana man, bidin sem defri kwa ejumekuo nchen emma mo.
yɛde koa mixture baeɛ mogye to mu kama afei yɛde foforɔ aba koa plus mixture ɛna koa empty mixture koa mixture ɛboa ama onipadua nya ahoɔden no na koa plus mixture nso ɛboa immune system fa koa mixture ɛne koa plus mixture fa boa wapɔmuden afei nso yɛde malaria dro tatahwe abedwa so ne din de koa empty mixture koa mixture koa plus mixture ɛne koa empty mixture ɛnyɛ mma apemfoɔ mma ɔmo ma akɔla nofoɔ ɛne nkɔla a ɔmo ndi mfie dumienu hwɛ sɛ wayɛ test a ɛkyerɛ sɛ wɔ malaria mmoawa no bi ɛwɔ mogya mu ansa na wafa koa empty mixture wopɛ dodoɔ tu a frɛ koa adwumakuo no ɛwɔ 0244 726611 anaa 059 165 5778 FDA agye adwidie nkratoɔ yi ato
Presidential candidate! Nana Kwame Bediako! The policies are the 12 pillars. Ministers are doing by 12. Because of all so because here and 12.
Aso, to say a Maguru Emre, Mitawase, and Automase. That is the kind of leadership we want.
We are doing the 276 constituency tour. We are called Ghana, baby, here will be a policy tour. When you walk in the balance room, you will see Nana Kwame Bediako, number 12. On a pet and a tree, I want it to show. On a super and I have brands here. Now, come here and so Grand Quan and Buffo. Let's bomb them out! Let's bomb them out! Let's bomb them out!
To all our believers,
to the Niger Gunners of Globe Road,
all you Wartetas of Africa, of Accra,
of Maputo,
of Oimbo,
the legends of legends down Lusaka way. We hear you.
Now hear us. Obrigado. Talo.
Betway, the official global betting partner of Arsenal.
Now, welcome to tonight's edition of Good Evening Ghana. Coming up tonight, Donald Trump, elected 47th President of the United States of America. How did the pollsters and the media get it so manifestly wrong? Has Donald Trump won the biggest landslide in American politics since the Second World War? We look at the figures, the maps, and all the analysis to make sense of what has happened in America. Also featuring in this discussion, Professor Eche Sikanku, the expert on political communication. He's an author and he's a lecturer. And then there is Dodu, the blind historian, who will give us the comparative analysis between what happened in America and what is likely to happen in Ghana on December 7th. Also in this edition, the Attorney General weighed in on Parliament's controversy in a rare interview on the sidelines of a government conference by government lawyers. Stay tuned. Join us for text messages. It will be brought to you by the social media editors. This is Good Evening Ghana. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, and thank you very much. So we're ready with this conversation. Professor Chesikanko and Nidodo are both seated. How did the night end? How did the night start? This was one of the important punctuations of the American election night. Have a look.
This is also a massive victory for democracy and for freedom. Together we're going to unlock America's glorious destiny. We're going to achieve the most incredible future for our people. Yesterday, as I stood at my last stop on the campaign trail, I'll never be doing a rally again. Can you believe it? I think we've done 900 rallies approximately from the, can you imagine? 900, 901, something, a lot of rallies. And it was sad. Everybody was sad. Many people, I said, this is our last rally. But now we're going on to something that's far more important, because the rallies were used for us to be put in this position where we can really help our country. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make our country better than it ever has been. And I said that many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together. We're going to fulfill that mission. The task before us will not be easy, but I will bring every ounce of energy, spirit, and fight that I have in my soul to the job that you've entrusted to me. This is a great job. There's no job like this. This is the most important job in the world. Just as I did in my first term, we had a great first term, a great first term. I will govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again. And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try, we have to try, and it's going to happen. Success will bring us together. I've seen that. I saw that in the first term when we became more and more successful. People started coming together. Success is going to bring us together, and we are going to start.
Okay, that was Donald Trump calling himself the winner as soon as his team had known the results in Pennsylvania. It was a bit too early, or some people thought it was early, but afterwards, Kamala Harris did the most courageous thing last night. This is Kamala Harris.
We must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States.
Very bold from Kamala Harris, the losing candidate in America's presidential election. Tonight it's time for the analysis. And we told you that Professor Chesi Kanku was going to be here, and so is Dodu's responsibility is to give us a comparative analysis with Ghana. Professor Chesi Kanku is supposed to explain from the point of political communication what happened in America. He knows that better than us. He is author of 2 books. One of them is this one, Bawumia. Dr. Chesi Kanku is a PhD, Bawumia and the Modern Vice Presidency. And his first book was on Obama, is that correct? Yes, the Afrocentric Obama, all on political communication. He is our expert in the studio. Those of you who saw him on Joy FM 2 nights ago, I'm sure you enjoyed it. There will be a lot more here tonight. Okay, so this is the concluding map, and this is how it ended. Well, has it ended? Not quite, but Donald Trump is now on 312 electoral college votes, and Kamala Harris is on 226 college votes. The vote difference in terms of popular votes is nearly 5 million at this stage, 4.6 million, and still counting. The 3.2 has not yet been formally declared, but if you look at the map, the light pink here, counting is going on. It looks like everything is going the way of the Republicans. So this looks like a long day for the Democrats in terms of going forward. Next election, they will need to recover the 5 million votes. There's a midterm election that's coming. They might be able to do something with it. But the question we are asking tonight, what went wrong? Okay, so if you pull this out and now you look at the county map, you will see the tremendous votes that the Republican candidates gathered all over the place. Everyone is trying to understand what happened. Some people think that Joe Biden should have dropped early, and I'll get to that in the map in a little bit. Some people feel that etc., etc. But in terms of political communication, and I've seen a few videos that people are explaining what happened, and I think I agree with some that I will put into Dr. Chikanko. I'll be asking him, Kamala Harris did not have a clear message. What was the message? It was not there. The message was that don't vote for Trump because he's too dangerous. Kamala Harris and his team did very well by pulling up the issues of women and how the women could respond and how the women can have choices about what they want to do with their body, isn't it? Now, last night I was watching CNN for early hours of this morning. The point was made that the book, and I noticed that the book that was written by Mrs. Trump, Donald Trump's wife, indicating a sort of pro-abortion concept and philosophy was significant by the PR of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is Republican, and Donald Trump also said that he is not going to do an abortion ban. He thinks that the states should handle it. He thinks that this should be a matter that each state should handle. The CNN analysis said that because Trump said that, he was no longer dangerous to abortion. So the Republicans, the Democrats overplayed the abortion issue, because the person that they were fighting, who looks like he's against it, in terms of his rhetoric, whatever horrible rhetoric that they attributed to Trump, on the abortion issue, Trump is reported to have said that it's a state matter. States should handle it. He's not in a hurry to deal with it. What he's in a hurry to do was the teaching children about their gender, allowing children to have operation to change from man to woman. Somebody just sent me a video right now saying that this is what decided the election. Trump had a video saying that on day one, he's going to cancel that program. Many parents all over the world don't like that program. Here in Ghana, we kicked against it heavily at the Ministry of Education. This issue of telling a 6-year-old, asking him that don't tell him he's a woman, don't tell him he's a man, just leave him, that kind of thing. Donald Trump was very frontal with it, and that won many American hearts. If we continue with the map, you will begin to see what else happened. If you look at gender here, in terms of male, 54% of male voted for Donald Trump, 44% of male voted for Kamala Harris. I'll be discussing with Prof what he thinks. I think this is a victory for Kamala Harris. To get 44% of men to elect you in America is very, very significant for a colored woman. I think this analysis is victory for Kamala Harris. What is not victory for Kamala Harris is the female vote that she carried. Kamala Harris came up with 54% of female votes, Donald Trump 44%. They equalized on gender. That's very significant, isn't it? The two candidates equalized on gender clearly. It suggests that perhaps gender will always equalize in most elections. The Americans were expecting that more women would turn up to vote. Maybe they didn't quite get that. But this is the analysis of the gender. 44% of men voted for Kamala Harris, and 44% of women voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump did extremely well with women because it was thought that no woman would vote for Donald Trump. The way he talks about women from 2016 up till now, what he says. But the point being made here is that people did not vote for Donald Trump because they liked him. They vote for Donald Trump because of his record, because they thought that the record that Donald Trump had, if Donald Trump were in charge today, the economy would be better. That's all it's what about. If you're running as president, I've said it on this program, you're running as former president, you run only one campaign, your record. Here we are with a former president who does not really talk about his record. Donald Trump has been elected in America because everything he said, he pointed to his record, his record, his record. And so the women who voted for him did not really consider him as an enemy of women as such. But they looked at his record, and his record was purely economy, border security. These were the two issues. He said, look at me on economy. Look at how I performed. I can deal with it. What you're suffering, if I come to be president, I'll change it. Border security, I'll change it again there too. And he said that, and it looks like this is what perhaps got the women to vote for him, even though they may hate his rhetoric about women and about all the nasty things that sometimes President Trump is able to say. All right, let's move on. So race, here you have on whites, 55% of whites voted Donald Trump, 43% of whites voted Kamala Harris. I don't know how to read that, but when we get there, Dr. H. will deal with it. Let's look at black votes. And I was quite impressed with the black votes. I was quite impressed because the surveys were suggesting that black male are not voting for Kamala Harris, etc., etc. It suggested that Barack Obama's addition to the campaign may have been wrong, etc., etc. Michelle Obama's addition, but here is the black vote. Kamala Harris delivered the black vote in a whooping way. 86% of black voted for the Democratic presidential candidate, the vice president, Kamala Harris, who had said that she was black as well. 86% of black voted for her. 12% of blacks voted for Donald Trump. I think the point, though, is that the black vote is not significant. The black vote is still hovering around 12. Dr. H, am I right? 12, 13%? Yeah, so the black vote may not be significant, but Kamala Harris delivered 86% of that. Then you come to Hispanics and Latino. That's a significant vote. And on Hispanics and Latino, there was a big quarrel, and it was all going to define Pennsylvania because a lot of them are there. There was a big quarrel going on about what's going to happen. And then Trump held a rally in New York where he talked about Puerto Rico in very derogatory terms. That's big parts of the Hispanic community. It was said that 500,000 of them are in Pennsylvania. The Democratic campaign was getting really excited after that Sunday New York rally where Trump said the most of the nastiest things, had comedians who said all sorts of things. The Democratic campaign was getting quite excited. See what happened. The Hispanics and Latino, 38% of them, nearly 40% of them, kept faith with Trump, the man who has said very nasty things about them 1 week to the election. They still voted for Trump. Why? They voted for Trump because they trust him. Why do they trust him? Because of his record. The record. That's why they trust him. So former presidents don't run elections except on their record. Let me say that again. Former presidents don't run elections except on their record. Just that. That's how former presidents run. Second-term presidents don't run elections except on their record. When Akufo-Addo was running a second term, he said, I have nothing to say. It's a choice between my 4 years of Mahama and my 4 years and Mahama's 4 years. Ghanaians will look at it and they make a choice. In Akufo-Addo's second term, he said nothing. He said, what do I have to say? This evidence is there for Ghanaians to see. I believe that if they see it, they will re-elect me. They did. So a former president only runs on his record. A vice president may also run on his record if he has won, but he can also say that I was the vice president. But if a vice president has record, he can put it out, that this is my record as vice president. But if you are president, you don't have an excuse. You are not running as a vice president. You are president. You are the number one. You run again. You run on your record. Donald Trump ran on his record, and he's been re-elected by a landslide. All right, so let's move on to Asia. Asians in America. 53% of Asians voted for Donald Trump. 43% voted for Kamala Harris. That's quite disappointing. Oh, sorry. Asians, sorry, I was reading others. Asian, 56 of Asian voted for Kamala Harris, 38% voted for Donald Trump. Also, again, Donald Trump is doing better than he should be doing. Kamala Harris has Indian connection. And I'm guessing that the Asian population will be Indian. There will be Chinese as well, I guess. But for Donald Trump to be doing 38% of that vote, that's impressive. And then you come to other. I'm not sure what other means because they've isolated Asian, Hispanic, black, and white, but they still have other, which is 43% for Kamala Harris and 53% for Donald Trump. That's how the races voted. Age, 18 to 19. People who are 18 to 19 years, 55% voted Kamala Harris, 42% voted for 42% voted Donald Trump. 30 to 44, 51% of 30-year-olds. So Kamala Harris won the Gen Z vote. I think she did. Yeah, she did. 18 to 29, Kamala Harris got 55 of them. Donald Trump got 42. 18 to 29, 30 to 34. That's important. Kamala Harris got 51%. Donald Trump got 46. Trump is improving as the age bracket is growing. But Trump wins a particular age bracket, 45 to 64. 53% of them vote for Trump and 45% of them vote for Kamala Harris. So the real battle was between ages 30 to 64. That was the battleground. And among the two, if you put 53% to 46% and 51% to this one, I think that Trump wins if you put that age bracket entirely together, 30 to 64. I think that was the significant part. And why is Trump winning in that category? I'm sure it's about economy and it's about immigration. And again, it's about Trump's record. And then if you have 65 over, Trump gets 49, Kamala Harris gets 50. Let's look at education. And this is the first concern I had when I began to think that Donald Trump is going to win the election. I discussed with Professor Chikanku when we spoke that the CNN said non-college graduates are looking like they're voting for Trump, and college graduates are voting for Kamala Harris. And I was worried when I heard that in terms of the statistics and from CNN, non-college graduates are 65% more than college graduates. So if you take 100% of any group of people, 65% are non-college, the rest are college graduates. And they said that Trump is doing significantly well with non-college graduates. Immediately, I knew that there was going to be a problem with this matter. Here is how it turned out. College graduates, 57% voted for Kamala Harris, 41% voted for Donald Trump. Here again, among college graduates, from the way they said Kamala Harris was winning them, Donald Trump is doing too well. He's doing too well with 40%, over 40% of a demographics that they said he's not going to get, that he's not popular with. He gets 40% of that demographics. That's significant. Like NDC getting 40% of Ashanti, or MPP getting 40% of voter register. So that's hugely significant. And all of that is playing into this landslide victory that Donald J. Trump was given by the American electorate yesterday. Non-college graduates, Donald Trump is getting 54% of it. Kamala Harris is getting 44% of it. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is the last bit. Harris and Biden comparison. That's a bit of heartbreak. It's disappointing. Because it's all complicated, isn't it? Perhaps, just perhaps, the polls that were pulled when Biden was the candidate, maybe they were wrong. Because the polls that have been pulled over Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was certainly wrong. So it may well be that the polling that edged Biden out could have been wrong. Because if you look at these figures, if that polling was correct, if Biden was running to be such a disastrous loser to Donald Trump, according to the media and according to the polls, why are these figures showing like that? 2020, Biden among Latino voters was doing 65%. Today, Kamala Harris did 53%. Young voters among Biden in 2020, Biden was about 75 years. Young voters, he pulled 60% of young voters. A man who was 75 years old pulled 60% of young voters. That was in 2020. Kamala Harris did 55% of young voters. And then you look at women. Joe Biden did better with women than Kamala Harris did. So what were they telling us? That Joe Biden was such a disastrous candidate? He was heading for a crash defeat? How did all that Biden popularity so dramatically erode by middle of 2023 and by beginning of 2024? How did that so dramatically erode? It's possible it could. Well, we're going to hear the analysis. Professor Sikanku will tell us all of that. Okay, so as a very little history, we're going into it. 1980, Ronald Reagan closes the deal with 8 million difference of the votes against Jimmy Carter. You come to 84, Ronald Reagan closes the deal again with 16 million difference in the popular vote against Walter Mondale. And then you have George Bush and Michael Dukakis, George Bush, senior George Bush, winning 16 million difference in the 1988 election. 1992, Bill Clinton defeats George Bush with a difference of 5 million. George Bush ends up with 168 electoral college votes. 1996, Bill Clinton also defeats Bob Dole, the Republican candidate, with 159. Clinton edges it with 8 million difference in the vote. Al Gore and George Bush, we already talked about it. And then we have George Bush again. We have John Kerry, McCain and Obama, Obama and Mitt Romney, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and then that's it for that. Let's get to the table now and discuss. Professor Sikanko is a college graduate from a PhD college graduate from Iowa, and he has thoughts about what happened last night. When did you begin to notice that the Democratic campaign was collapsing?
Well, when the swing states started coming in, in fact, Pennsylvania, then Michigan, Wisconsin. I knew she was in trouble.
What happened?
Well, for me, it wasn't much of a surprise because if you follow the elections in 2016, you should know by now that anything was possible with Donald Trump. And if you look at Kamala Harris, the whole thing was not so surprising because Trump's lead in the polls had held very steady, 47, 48 over time. And if you also looked at some of the so-called incendiary comments that he was making, or the apocalyptic statements that he was making, the denigrative statements that he was making, the research showed that none of these affected his standing within the general public. In fact, after the first debate, people went on and on and on about how the debate didn't really go well for him. But the internal research, even within the Trump campaign, had shown that despite what people saw as not such a good showing in the debate, his stand within the general public was still not going down. And so people just waited till after the so-called, the Harris nomination, the initial joy and excitement that came about, and then it kind of steadied. And getting toward the end of the campaign, it wasn't only the excitement about Harris was not just seeding, but then Trump was actually edging up even after getting close to the election day. And so by the time election day had come, that he was on the rise, he had regained the momentum. And by the time election day came, I mean, he easily won it. The other thing is that economic factors were a major reason why he won. He kept asking the question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And for a lot of people, you look at the Latino vote, there were a lot of people who were debating, why is it that he talks about the border, talks about immigration, but still gets a huge percentage in the Latino vote? And
that's an important question.
Yes, with interviews that were done, and I remember being on the ground there, speaking to some of these folks, and most of the responses that they were giving me, I mean, from Maryland, we were in Boston as well, we were in Chicago, we were in Iowa on the ground, some of those reports which you showed, most of these Latino persons that we talked to said for them, it's very simple, and that it was all about the economy. They compared the prices of a dozen eggs. About 4 years ago, maybe it was $1.99. Now it was about $5. They look at the price of bread, for instance, where it stood a couple of years ago and now. They look at their rents, they look at their grocery prices, and they were just reeling under really high prices, who were just barely managing to live and to survive. And so for them, that was enough, reason for them, because it all came down to their pocketbooks. So this was the major. The others would talk about the social values. But some of those that we spoke to, they said that the Republican Party's values were now aligning more, or had aligned more with their own values, i.e. the whole abortion issue. Most of them were Catholics and Christians, and so the abortion issue was not necessarily something that they were enthused about. Social values in terms of Christianity, in terms of the Bible, and also in terms of same-sex marriage. I think one of the deal breakers for a lot of them, speaking to especially those in the older generation, was that very issue about transgender change.
That was a big matter.
Yeah, it just put them off. And I think the Democratic Party...
What did the Biden seek to pass a law in Parliament to sort of do the transgender thing? Is that what it said? Was there a law going through Congress?
Yeah,
trying to establish this. And I just have a video. I've sent to my producer to look for it. And he said this is the first speech Trump gave, and this is what won him the election a year and a half ago. Because he said that, look, he's seen that thing, he's going to cancel it. They are not going to teach two children who are 4 years old that you can do surgery to change your gender.
Sex change, yeah.
Were they preparing a bill like that?
Well, I mean, the thing was that they were more supportive. I mean, Kamala Harris, actually, if you do the research, she even donated or supported such sex changes some couple of years ago. So they really had thrown their support around such reproductive right issues such as transgender rights, gay rights, and all of that. And so, and it started from the Obama era, you know, and continued to Biden. Clinton had also shown some support, legalization of same-sex marriage, the teaching of gender change in schools, the introduction of sexual studies that encourage people. I mean, some people would go to town hall meetings and complain that some of the policies in the school that stated that if you were a 6-year or 7-year-old kid and you felt that you were not in the right, you could report it and they would facilitate a change of that gender. And there were people who would go to the city councils and say they were against that they went against their moral values. For a lot of the Latinos, this was a big deal for them. And some didn't even require parental rights or parental consent, you know, and that really was just too extreme. So the question about why he would rail against immigrants and all of that, they will still vote for them. These are the three things. One, the economy. In fact, the economy was a huge issue because to them, yeah, they may not like what Trump says. They may not even like how he says it. They may not even like some of the things that he says. But at the end of the day, it's about survival. And so the economy loomed large over it. So it was that economy. In terms of the economy,
were they voting for him because he's a different candidate from those running the economy today, or they were voting for him because they trust what he can do based on history?
I think it was the trust. People believed that he was better at the economy. They still had that image of a businessman, somebody who ran the private sector.
He had Elon Musk.
Yeah, he had Elon Musk. They had the image of him.
Why did the Democrats discount the role of Elon Musk and thought that the celebrity endorsement was better? The role of an Elon Musk, a Bill Gates, a Mark Zuckerberg. I thought that kind of endorsement is heavier than Beyonce.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they just discounted that these people would appeal to the younger people.
But they will. They are their people. This is tech.
They did. And I think they also undermined their ability, you know, because Elon Musk is somebody who didn't definitely support same-sex marriage and gay rights and all of that. So they were counting that, I mean, they did not align with some of their own policies. They were hoping that they would get some advantage there. Yeah, so with the economy, it was not just the trust, but also 4 years ago, people would say that the economy was definitely better under Donald Trump. And so they remember that. I mean, you do the research and they will tell you that they believe that things were better off for them 4 years ago or a couple of years ago when Donald Trump was in power compared to now. And yes, inflation is not just a Ghanaian problem. It really was
they have a problem too.
Huge, yeah, and it affected prices over there. Biden tried his best. To be fair, it did come down. There were more jobs as well. But it did not trickle down to affect the prices. You know, the prices really had held steady, and people were really beginning to feel the heat of it.
Was it a good decision to change Biden?
For me, on hindsight, it's easy to say on hindsight that, oh, well, we could have maintained him and all that. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do ever. But I do think that to all intents and purposes, I mean, it was clear for everybody to see, even without the polls, even without any scientific proof or whatever. I think everybody could see that he was really
the personal deconstruction of the president. You could tell.
Yeah. And just his cognitive abilities were declining. There were times that he couldn't even remember where he was at a particular time. There were times that he was murmuring when he was talking, and he made statements that were totally unrelated to the moment or the context where he was giving the speech, making statements that were unrelated and pretty much going off. You know, so his cognitive abilities were very, very much evident for everybody to see. And so I don't. It's easy to say upon hindsight that he could have done better, but it could have actually been worse.
Worse would be a very real disaster. In terms of political communication, I listened to an interesting conversation on CNN at dawn today, and David Axelrod and his team. The point was Kamala Harris did not define herself.
Yeah, it's true. I think by and large that I wouldn't debate that.
She repeated over and over again that she did. People somehow were not listening.
Yeah, so she defined herself.
She's a liberal.
Yes.
Yes. How much more definition must she give to that?
Well, so it's not just about the ideology, and it's not just about liberalism, but people wanted to know exactly what she would do in specifics on day one. This is
what
I'm
is Trump
doing.
saying he will do? On day 1, he's cancelling something.
Yes.
Day 2, he's cancelling something.
Yes.
Day 3, he's deporting somebody. Day 4, he's jailing somebody.
Yes.
Is that what they want? That's what they wanted to say?
Well, there were specifics, yes. With him, with Trump, there were. And with Harris, she had this whole broad thing. Remember when they would ask her that she held certain positions previously, and now why has it changed? She would just go and say, oh, my principles have changed. She would not explain why it changed. And she also spent quite a bit of time.
That was a big one. And
Yes.
that's the thing with American politics. You can't hide your history.
Yes.
You know, so they remembered the position she took on certain things.
Yes.
Even her gender description was problematic because historically she had said she was Indian or something.
Right, her racial description.
And then now she says she's black. And Trump made a comment about it.
Right.
But it was said to be a negative comment for Trump. But Trump said, well, she suddenly says she's black. Okay, no problem.
Of course, yes, that appeals to the Trump supporters.
Yeah.
So her inability to explain her different stances on positions over time was one. 2, I also do think from a communication point that she spent a lot of time hammering Trump. If there's anything that we learned from 2016 was that there was nothing that you are going to say evil about Trump that would move his supporters. Biggest mistake of Hillary Clinton was that she tried to paint to the Americans how unrestrained, how unnerved, how unhinged, how unorthodox, how out of the mainstream, how so unusual and paranoid Donald Trump was that he represented everything that was not American. She spent all her time trying to prove to the people how deranged Donald Trump was, and that did not work. And so if there was anything that Kamala should have known, and she spent a considerable amount of time
doing the same thing,
that Donald Trump is not a serious man. Donald Trump is a fascist. To the extent that she played videos of Donald Trump in her rallies to demonstrate to people how just out of the ordinary Donald Trump was, how just unhinged he was. But if there's any lesson that we would learn, that really doesn't work because they've been doing this for 8, 10, 12 years and it has not changed. That's not something that would affect the Trump supporters. Because
was she hoping? She was looking for independence. She was not doing that to look for Trump supporters. She was looking for independence.
Right. But you know by now that there were a lot of people, that's why I said when it came to the economy, most independents would break for Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's correct.
So the statements about
So they are not voting for Trump on morality, on attitude. They are voting for him on his capacity to make the economy work as a result of his business inclination and his relationships with important business people.
Exactly.
That's really why they are voting for Trump.
Exactly.
So if you are telling them that Trump is immoral, yeah, okay, so good night. What about that?
Yes.
But if you point out to them that Trump cannot do the economy for you, that they may listen.
Exactly.
But if you say Trump is immoral, they are not judging Trump on morality.
Right.
They're judging his ability to perform the job.
Right. But
So-
that character assassination has gone on and on and on. And it really hasn't changed anybody's mind. Anybody who supported Trump or any independent, it really hasn't changed them. Because if it would, he would have been losing by 30 points. Because they spent a whole lot of time talking about how unnerved and unhinged he was.
But
And
why
it doesn't
couldn't
change anybody.
Harris, who has the college, senior college support, put together a team to say this is what we're going to do about the economy in the next 6 months and articulate it? That's not difficult.
Right, and it comes down to the 3 months that she had.
Too
there
short.
Yeah, there were people who just said, if you notice, people are not really blaming her for the loss. I mean, she had just a short.
Not so
time.
just her, it's a whole campaign.
The campaign for the loss.
Did she inherit Biden's campaign group or she got her own campaign?
She got her own people. She got her own people, and some even blame Biden for not dropping out early enough to give somebody enough time.
But the reasons why Kamala Harris did not win doesn't need time. Defining yourself is something you start before you enter the race. Once you know conversations are going on, okay, so what's the definition of our candidate? Now we have a new candidate.
Right.
What does this candidate represent?
Right.
Yeah, that's the first thing you do.
Yeah.
And then you send the message. You can decide to have 2 or 3 of those. When the first one goes and looks like it's bouncing, you change it.
Right.
The other day here in Ghana, some people said BMW, Baumia must win.
Right.
Now everybody has forgotten about it.
Right.
Because they threw it, it didn't work, they pulled it back. They said it is possible. Is that working? That seems to be working, let's roll with it.
Yeah.
So the first definition of Baumia is that I can achieve it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he's telling you. So he's defined himself before he sets out the journey. I thought Kamala Harris and his Harvard team and his Princeton and MIT and University of California, Berkeley,
Right.
all of them sitting around here.
Right.
I thought David Axelrod and co, they would know this. You have to have the candidate defined.
Right.
Donald Trump is defined as a by-heart talker.
Right.
But now he's not coming. That's why he's winning probably stronger than 2016.
Right.
Now he's coming with a record. In 2016, he came with no record. As a by-heart talker and a New York real estate owner.
Right.
They said, okay, maybe he can. Now he's coming in that, okay, so I held the economy, you saw it.
Right.
So he's very, very strong now.
Yeah.
And you are putting him in court and you are convicting him of felony, and that's making it worse.
Yeah.
And you made that point that one of the things that these things can do is to galvanize the base.
Oh, yes.
To call them garbage and to try and put Donald Trump in jail. Those things can unite the base, and it did.
Yes. And
massively.
Absolutely. And you know one thing, if you do the research again, and this time it's not me just talking about what I think, but if you actually do talk to some of the Trump supporters, and even apart from the research, you remember we went to CPAC, the Convention Political Action Committee. CPAC is the biggest conservative conference ever in the US. And if you remember in March, I was at CPAC physically, and we sent the report, Good Evening Ghana. We talked to some of these MAGA hat wearing Republicans. And they would just tell you to that point that you just made about defining and about the felony charges and all of that. One of the things that they will tell you is that they actually do believe in their mind that Donald Trump is being persecuted.
Yeah, that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
You mean they believe it?
Yes.
They're not speculating.
No.
They believe it.
They see him as being witch hunted. They see him as somebody that the system is going after. They see him as somebody that has come under unfair and enormous criticism and enormous persecution. They see the media, one of their biggest problems is with the media. They think that the media is out there to get him. They think he has not been treated fairly by the media, and that he has been unnecessarily subjected to a lot of victimization. That's how they see the felony charges and everything play out. And that is why on the day that he was convicted of criminal charges, he raked in $50 million United States dollars on that day. That was just Trump alone, his campaign. If you look at his super PAC also earned another $50 million US dollars. That's $100 within $100 million US dollars within about 48 hours of his criminal convictions. And that is because people saw him as a victim of the system, that the system was going against him and that they needed to support him. So almost he appeared almost like he had this victim mentality among some of his supporters. And it riled them up. It made them even more viscerous or aggressive in giving him that support. Because if you look at the Trump supporters, their support for him is really, really strong and very, very tight. So you spoke to
for them, it's like a movement, like a religion.
Yes, they are very attached to it. So at CPAC, these were some of the things that you were hearing, speaking to these real. I mean, you might be in the liberal media and say, what do they mean? Why are they? I don't understand why they do support. But for them, this is real for them. You know, they saw him as somebody under persecution, and they felt they needed to go out there and defend him.
Let's talk about the running mates before we bring Dodo in. So, was the Kamala Harris running mate choice wrong?
Yes, I know it's something we've talked about quite a bit. And
but according to the results today, you can still give Kamala Harris Pennsylvania and she still loses.
Good, that's what I was coming to.
Yeah, you give her
Pennsylvania, if you add that 19 votes to it.
If you give her 19 and take 19 from Trump and give it to her, she still loses. If I give her 30, she still loses.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't about Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so we would never ever know, you know. And hey, in politics, this is what they say, that it's never always about the top of the ticket. It's about the bottom of the it's never about the bottom of the ticket, it's about the top of the ticket. So vice presidential candidates, in terms of their impact, maybe give it, I don't know, 1% or a bit.
But it shows that J.P. Vance worked for the number of votes that Trump was getting among young people. Those may not be Trump votes. It's J.P. Vance. He's very popular with young people. Young Republicans.
Young Republicans. But you know, a lot of these young Republicans have been really inspired by Donald Trump himself.
Okay.
I would say that for this was about Trump.
Trump is 79.
Yes.
And he inspires at 28 years to 30 years old.
The language that he spoke, trying not to be politically correct, going there to say, I'll drain the swamp, for people who were looking for something different, for people who did not want people who were did not believe in political orthodoxy, or as the elites or the bureaucrats, people who were looking for something different. I mean, we don't underestimate that there are many, many young people who tune out of politics because of the political elites, because of the political bureaucrats, because of the career politicians. And that really is who Biden and the Democrats really where, or at least their language was appealing to, there are many young people who are looking for something different all over the world, not just in Senegal. You saw what happened. You know, they really want something out of the ordinary. A lot of young people are going to run and latch up to that. And Donald Trump's rhetoric as an outsider really appealed to them in that respect.
Wow. Where does this leave the Democratic Party?
Oh, I think it leads them to a lot of soul searching. It's a big dawn. It's a dawning moment for them. The Democrats really have to sit down and really rethink their strategies. They really have to sit down and rethink about how they understand the American psyche or the American citizens. Maybe they don't really understand them after all. It's about time that, because this was not just a small win. It was a big one. I mean, among different demographic groups, they were losing in the swing states. They didn't just lose one or two. They lost across board, many of those swing states. So I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching. They really need to rethink their messaging. They need to do a lot of audience research to find out really what the American people want, and they need to retool, their messaging and their strategy in terms of reaching the hearts and the souls of the citizens. Because you can do all the communication, you can do all the messaging that you want, but if you are not really responding to the needs of the people enough, you might end up being shocked at the end of the day.
Dudu?
Yes, sir.
As the American election relating to Ghana, how are the people of Esiakwa watching it? What did they say?
I think, let me first greet you, Prof. I think you were saying that in 2020, Joe Biden was 75. No, he was 78. Joe Biden is 20th November 1942.
So Joe Biden is 82 now?
Yes.
Oh, I thought he was 80.
No.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Praise God. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like praying and giving and so on. Hallelujah. Christianity is the outworking of God's own kind of life received into the spirit of a man. Whoa! This divine life in the heart of a man makes him righteous. It keeps him healthy, divinely guided in life, prosperous and
Trump, who have always touted themselves to others on Joy News. And I think Evans Mensah started this thing, and even Sekou Nkrumah corrected him. I listened to them. So the vice president. So if the former president have won, it means that is what is going to happen. But one thing, and this issue also.
He says, Prof, there is underpinning issue, which is also gender and racial biases. It seems that America is not ready for a woman to be a president, which is President Trump.